Good to have you on Tesla Shorts Time, episode 541 for July 14th, 2026. I'm Patrick, coming to you from Vancouver. Plenty going on in EV land. Let's get to it. Tesla's European FSD fleet passed 50 million kilometers in under 3 months, handing regulators in Germany and France the real-world data they have been waiting for. Dutch owners logged over 10 million kilometers within a month of provisional approval in April. Lithuania, Estonia, Denmark, and Belgium added approvals through June. The combined fleet passed 50 million kilometers by July 14. Owners are averaging nearly 580,000 FSD kilometers daily across 5 countries. The dataset now covers narrow roads and heavy cyclist traffic that regulators in larger markets want to see. Italy, Germany, and France are evaluating next stage approvals on the basis of these edge case miles. Tesla has formally applied for FSD supervised approval in Italy as the 6th European country. Approval there would extend contiguous coverage and add another high-mileage market to the growing dataset. From regulatory data collection, we turn to the hardware that will eventually run on that data. Samsung Foundry confirmed the AI5 chip tape-out has completed. Production will begin at its Texas facility. The next-generation inference silicon targets both unsupervised FSD and Optimus. The move advances the HW5/AI5 timeline tracked since early 2026. Focus now shifts from design validation to the first wafers that will determine whether the new silicon meets the required performance multiplier. That brings us to the dedicated energy cells supporting the broader ecosystem. Samsung SDI will construct a dedicated production line for Tesla Energy Storage System batteries in the United States. The line focuses on megapack scale products. No capacity figures or timeline were provided. The dedicated line separates stationary storage manufacturing from vehicle cell lines. Each track can optimize for different cycle life and cost targets without competing for the same factory capacity. Tesla First Principles explores why a dedicated U.S. battery line for megapacks changes capital allocation and raw material contracting compared with shared vehicle cell production. Battery supply chains have long been viewed as a single bottleneck that any manufacturer must either own or endure. Tesla's decision to have Samsung SDI build a dedicated U.S. line for energy storage cells shows the company treating stationary batteries as a separate production track rather than a side stream of vehicle cells. This separation lets each product chase its own cost curve and chemistry without forcing trade-offs in energy density or cycle life that vehicle packs demand. The practical result is faster scaling of megapack output while vehicle programs continue to absorb 4680 and LFP cells at their own pace. It also reduces the risk that a sudden surge in car demand crowds out grid projects that now contribute meaningful revenue and margin. Over time, the split could matter more than vertical integration itself. A dedicated storage line lets Tesla negotiate raw material contracts sized to predictable utility demand instead of the lumpier vehicle schedule. That predictability feeds back into lower financing costs for the factories that build the factories. From stationary energy scaling, we move to the vehicles that will move goods using that same energy infrastructure. ATC Logistics will run 20 Tesla semis at the LA and Long Beach ports starting early 2027. The trucks will charge at Forum Mobility's new FM Santa Fe depot in Rancho Dominguez. The semi's 500-mile range and megawatt charging system are the key reasons cited for the choice over diesel. 3 other fleets have already signed similar deals with Forum Mobility for the same routes. Paper Transport will test the long-range semi configuration in dedicated operations around Chicago. The colder weather routes will provide data on real-world range and charging performance in winter conditions. Chicago's combination of cold temperatures and frequent short-haul cycles will test whether the 500-mile rating holds when auxiliary loads for cabin heat and battery conditioning are highest. From freight movement, we shift to the charging network that will support both freight and passenger vehicles. 7-Eleven Japan will install superchargers at select locations across the country. The move expands Tesla's charging network into high-traffic retail sites that already serve millions of daily customers. No timeline or number of sites was disclosed. The partnership places chargers where convenience store foot traffic is highest. Utilization could increase during evening and overnight hours when other sites see lower demand. From physical charging access, we turn to the regulatory path for the vehicles that will eventually use it unsupervised. Tesla confirmed that employees have begun riding in cybercab vehicles. The internal program marks the first documented use of the vehicle without a safety driver in controlled conditions. No details on frequency or route types were shared. The step moves the program from static demonstrations to supervised passenger miles inside company gates. This is the necessary precursor before any public unsupervised deployment can be requested. From the standard Cybercab, we turn to the accessible variant being developed in parallel. Tesla confirmed development of a wheelchair-accessible version of the robotaxi. The variant is intended to broaden the addressable market for the upcoming autonomous vehicle. No production timeline or additional specifications were released. Adding accessibility features early in the design cycle avoids costly retrofits later. The approach positions the vehicle for regulatory and municipal fleet contracts that require ADA compliance. From vehicle development, we turn to the competitive pressure building in the same regulatory markets. XPenging is expanding its camera-only autonomous driving system into Europe. The company follows the same vision-only approach Tesla uses and has already begun regulatory discussions. No specific launch markets or timelines were named. The parallel technical strategy sets up direct competition for the same regulatory approvals and driver data sets that Tesla is currently accumulating across 5 EU countries. California signed a $270 million EV rebate program into law that begins this summer. Tesla vehicles qualify under the new rules for first-time buyers. The program targets price reductions for qualifying electric vehicles sold in the state. Eligibility gives Tesla an immediate price advantage in the largest U.S. EV market, just as competing models face tighter inventory and slower sales. A large South African farm installed 5 megawatts of solar paired with battery storage equivalent to 1,481 Powerwalls. The system allows the operation to disconnect from the national utility Eskom entirely. No further details on payback period or installer were released. The installation demonstrates how scaled residential-style battery blocks can support commercial loads that previously required grid connection. Tesla Roddy is preparing to drive coast-to-coast using the latest FSD version. The trip will test how the system handles long-distance routing and varied highway conditions without intervention. No start date has been announced yet. The planned route will expose the software to construction zones, weather changes, and rest area navigation that shorter tests rarely capture in a single continuous drive. Version 14.3.5 introduces a live camera preview window for drivers. The feature shows what the vehicle's vision system is seeing in real time. It is intended to increase transparency during supervised operation. Drivers can now watch the same visual input the neural net uses, offering a direct view into why the car chooses certain maneuvers. Early users report that version 14.3.5 struggles with parking maneuvers in some lots. The issues appear most noticeable when pulling into tight or angled spaces. Tesla has not yet commented on a fixed timeline. The feedback loop from these early reports will determine whether the next point release addresses parking before wider distribution or waits for additional fleet data. Tesla stated that its vehicles can last beyond 15 years at 20,000 kilometers of annual driving. The claim is based on internal durability testing and fleet data. It positions Tesla vehicles as long-term ownership options rather than short-cycle fleet cars. The durability statement supplies a concrete benchmark for residual value calculations that used car buyers and leasing companies have been requesting. Now, one thing worth watching is the sharpest used EV price falls among major brands. Used Tesla values have fallen 10%, the steepest drop among major EV brands. The decline reflects higher inventory levels and buyer hesitation ahead of newer model launches. Tesla's position as the largest used EV seller makes it the most visible barometer of softening demand in the segment. Dealers report that the price pressure is most pronounced on 2023 to 2024 Model Y units, where supply from lease returns and trade-ins has outpaced retail absorption in several European markets. Tomorrow, we'll be watching for the first AI5 wafers coming off the line in Texas and any movement on Italy's FSD filing. And that's everything worth knowing about Tesla today. TSLA closed at $394.76, down $13, 3.2%. If the show saves you time, a quick rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify goes a long way. You can also find us on X at Tesla Shorts Time. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. I'll see you tomorrow. And before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets. Each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. Modern investing techniques, modern strategies for Canadian and U.S. investors. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. Following the long arcs, story trackers on naranetwork.com follow major programs across episodes Tesla, SpaceX, AI, space science, and more. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.